all of you all. I'm Campbell, author of Pure Phonics and Campbell Academy online, and also I'm the founder of Campbell Christian Academy in Dallas, Texas. And before I get started, I just want to compliment each and every one of you all for homeschooling your children. I'm so proud of you. It's a wonderful thing that you are willing to give your time to your children, and it's a blessing for them and a blessing for you all as well. It's you recognize that the system isn't working, and that you're going to train your children up in the way they should go. So congratulations to each and every one of you all. This is my first time here at the North Carolina Convention, and I'm excited to be here to help you to have a great homeschooling year, one that you'll enjoy and one that your family will enjoy. In fact, one that you'll look back and in years to come and cherish that time. Come on in and sit down. The things that I'm going to tell you today are things that I have discovered over the last 50 years. And yes, I've been teaching for 50 years. And my granddaughter sweetly told me a while ago, Mimi, you haven't aged a bit. But I'd like to tell you a little history about myself before we get started. I was a homeschooler before anyone even knew that homeschooling was something that you could do. I guess you could call me a pioneer in homeschooling because it was 1984 when I began. I taught high school English and journalism and speech for 10 years before that in the Texas public schools. And I saw the kids coming in 9th grade. They couldn't read, they couldn't write, they couldn't spell, they couldn't think logically and sequentially, they couldn't put their thoughts down on paper, they couldn't write a complete sentence and punctuate it properly, much less a simple 5-sentence paragraph and punctuate it correctly. I had no idea how I was supposed to teach them 9th grade English. How was I supposed to teach them how to write an essay? How was I supposed to teach them how to write a term paper? There was no way. Concerning math, most of them counted on their fingers, they counted in their heads to get the simplest of answers, and that was just totally unacceptable. We had 2 small children at the time, Kelly and Jeremy, and I knew from what I had seen that if I didn't teach them, they were not going to get taught. So at night and on the weekends, I decided to start teaching them, and I taught them phonics, the way I had learned how to read, and I taught them math, the old-fashioned way that works, memorizing the facts. I'm so glad to see people already doing this. And I also got busy teaching them character. I wanted them to be godly children. I wanted them to be children with good morals, children who were honest and loyal and respectful and well-mannered and much, much more, because where I was teaching, I wasn't seeing much of that, if anything, if any at all. The day came that I finally quit teaching. I just quit after 10 years. And I began to look around at schools for our children. And I found that the private schools and the public schools were basically the same. They didn't teach reading the right way. They didn't teach math the right way. And there was no mastery of any subject at all. Instead, they had these curriculums that were absolutely beautiful. You'd look at this, parents would go in and look at these curriculums and they'd say, wow, if my child goes to XYZ school, he's going to be the smartest kid in America. He's going to be so smart. But the problem was that they weren't teaching correctly. And so the children were going to school at these big schools or little schools, what have you, or public schools, And they had these curriculums, and so the teacher would teach lesson 1. But the children didn't understand what lesson 1 was all about. They didn't have time to master it. And the next day, the teacher went on to lesson 2. And so now the child was already behind. The next day came lesson 3. Well, the child hadn't even mastered lesson 1 yet, so now they were very far behind. And what happened was the children would get farther and farther behind and get frustrated, and finally so demoralized that they just quit. And that is what had happened to the high schoolers that I had attempted to teach for 10 years. They had not gotten the basics, and so every year they were getting farther and farther behind, and they realized it was just a vicious cycle, and they became demoralized, and they would just give up. So one day, my sweet husband said to me, "Why don't you just continue to teach the children at home? You've done real well. You've taught them, to read, and you've been teaching them math and everything, and you're having great success." And so I said, "Can you do that?" And he said, "Well, I don't know why not." So I called the United States Department of Education. We had one at that time. And I asked them if we could do this. And the man that I spoke to said, "Yes, you certainly can teach your child at home, and there's only one requirement, and that is that you teach them good citizenship." And I said, "Well, we've got that covered, for sure." But because I had been teaching in the public schools for so long, and now I was officially a homeschooler, I thought that I had to teach everything. I thought I had to teach all the subjects. I thought I had to teach history and science and language and art and all of these different things. So I went out and I bought hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of curriculums. And I spent hours and hours and hours trying to teach my children all these subjects. And they weren't having any fun, and neither was I. So again, my dear husband came in one day and he said to me, "June, what are you thinking? Or are you thinking?" And I said, What do you mean telling me something like that?" And he said, "You're just copycatting the rest of the world." He said, "Put the rest of all that material away for now and concentrate on the basics. Just go back to what you were doing. Reading, writing, grammar, spelling, and math." He reminded me, he said, "If a child can't read, there's not much history he can learn. If a child can't read and read well, there's not a lot of science he can learn. Oh yeah, you can, take them outside and plant a seed and watch the roots grow and all of that, and that's so much fun, and that's good science. But that's not real science, because real science is when you get to chemistry, and at that point, they're going to have to be able to read, they're going to have to be able to do at least algebra, and so you've got to get to the basics. Reading is the first step in learning. So I put it all away, and I went back to the basics, and I was so happy, and our children were so happy, and we got back to business again, learning the basics. Our children never ever went to school anywhere else but our little homeschool to begin with. I never taught them history, I never taught them science, and I never taught them any of the other subjects. I just stuck with the basics. Our daughter Kelly, who happens to be sitting right here on the front row, she started college when she was 14. And she got a full academic scholarship to SMU, which is Southern Methodist University. Sometimes I forget I'm not in Texas. And she got a full academic scholarship and graduated cum laude from the Cox School of Business. And our son Jeremy started college at age 16. And he went to Southeastern Oklahoma State University and majored in aviation and business. And after he graduated, he flew for the United States Marines for a long time. And now he flies for American Airlines. And his family lives right here in North Carolina. So you might say, well, how in the world did they do so well in the universities if you didn't teach them all the subjects? You know, you didn't teach them science and you didn't teach them history. How could they have done so well? Well, the answer to that question is because they were great readers. They could comprehend what they read. They could think and discern the most important things of what they read. And most of all, they knew that they had to master every lesson before they moved on. They read biographies about people that they wanted to read about. They read about other subjects that they were interested in. It all goes back to being a great reader and great at math too. In the meantime, there were a lot of people that were asking me to teach their children. And so before long, I had a lot of students in my house. And eventually, I had so many students in our house that we had to move our little home school out of the house because the neighbors were getting mad about the traffic situation. So we bought some property and we built a little red schoolhouse, a one-room schoolhouse. And we went back to teaching reading, writing, grammar, and math. And since then, thousands of children have come through that little red schoolhouse to learn the basics. And now children all over the world are learning to read by the program that I authored, and it's called Pure Phonics. And I'm going to tell you more about that in just a few minutes. But first of all, to teach your child how to read, you must know the right method. And this is the most important thing that you can do before you get started. There are curriculums out there that will tell you how to teach your child how to read in all different ways. And the two most common ones that we hear about now are phonics and the sight method. But which one is right? So let me give you a little background information about both of these well-debated methods of teaching your child to read. Now stick with me as we go through this, and then hopefully afterwards you're going to be able to easily decide which one is the one that works. And then after that, if you've stuck with me, I'm going to tell you a few more things, and then I'm going to be your teacher, and you're going to be my class, and we're going to learn a little bit about teaching our child how to read with my program, which is the Pure Phonics one. We'll go through a few of the first lessons, and I'm going to get your help and try to show you how to do it. But first, let's understand phonics versus sight. And if you like what you hear and you want to go back and listen to this again, I have a post on YouTube that you can go back and watch on Campbell Academy online. So here we go. Back in the late 1940s, and that was before I was born, I want to make sure everybody understands that, the United States government threw out phonics, the old-fashioned, tried and true way of teaching phonics. And they replaced it with something called, they called it whole language. And whole language has now evolved into the sight method. And for those of you, I'm going to digress here for a minute, for those of you who don't know what phonics is the method that we use where we take just a few sounds of the alphabet letters, and we have the child master those sounds, then we put those sounds together to make words. And then we learn a few more and we make some more words. For example, in my program, I teach just a few letters at a time. And the first three consonants that I teach are H, M, and P. And with those letters and an A, the short A vowel, you can make words like am, ham, pam, ma'am, pat, mat, map. And the child learns to read As they sound out, they learn to read from left to right. From left to right, which is extremely important. And they blend the sounds together to make the words. All the while, let's say I've gone on to lesson 3, they've mastered lesson 1, lesson 2, and I've gone on to lesson 3. I continue to go back and review and review and review. In fact, I say this when I teach over and again. The kids start to tease me at school and they say, I know what we're going to do. We're going to review, review, review. Well, the reason why is that reviewing is one of the basic keys to success. I'm going to show you some of these lessons in just a few minutes. With phonics, children are able to sound out a word that they've never seen before, words that are not familiar to them. And he's going to read fluently, or she, and have fantastic comprehension. This means he's going to, or she is going to remember what that child has read. The sight method is totally different. It started out like this. The curriculum companies would determine what books the children were going to read that year. They would go through the books, pick out some of the most commonly used words in the story, and they would put those words on flashcards. Send the flashcards home to the parents and say, flash, 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 until your son or your daughter can remember these words. For example, let's say that there's a story about Joe. Joe's a race car driver. And the company would put on the flashcards maybe Joe, maybe race, car, driver, maybe the, and of, and just a few words. But none of these words have any similarity in spelling or sound or anything like that. But the child had to just memorize those words. The premise was that when the child memorized those words and he picked up the book, Joe the race car driver, he'd see the word and he'd go, oh, Joe, I see Joe. Or driver, oh, I can read, I see this word. But there were a lot of other words in that story that they hadn't seen before. And the teacher would say, don't worry about it, just guess at it. Just guess at the word. Or look at the pictures and just kind of make up a story, make up what you think makes sense. So the children did that, and they came up with stories that didn't really have anything to do with what the basic story was to start with. Also, as they memorized, they would see the cards, and they would look at those as they memorized them. And you know, when you look at a picture, we don't normally just stare at a picture when we first look at it and look at it right in the middle. Something maybe up in the upper right-hand corner will catch our eye, or the upper left-hand corner. So our eyes kind of drift all over the picture and then maybe we look from left to right or right to left. We might even look up to down, and up to down is right. So the kids started doing this. Their eyes would track all over the page, all over the picture. And as they started trying to read these words, many of those children started reading backwards. They read from right to left. Now get ready. This was called dyslexia, reading back. If you have never read the book, Why Johnny Can't Read, you need to get it and read it. It's written by a man named Rudolph Flesch, F-L-E-S-C-H. He's the author of the book, and he explains all of this in detail. And you will be shocked at what we hear today about reading disorders. As each book was given to the child during the year, more and more words had to be memorized. And here's what happened. I want you to imagine a filing cabinet. A filing cabinet has drawers in it, and it's got lots of file folders inside of it. Now we're going to pretend that our brains are a filing cabinet for a minute. And each one of the words that your child memorizes off the cards is filed in your brain filing cabinet. So let's say you've learned 50 words by memory, or 60 words, or 100 words, whatever it is. Each one of those words is filed away into that brain filing cabinet. And so as the child is reading, the brain is flipping through all these file folders, trying to find the image that his eyes are seeing on the paper. And it takes a while sometimes, especially if you've got 100 words or 60 words. That's a lot of words. So the brain is having to look for all of those pictures, and the child is waiting for the brain to catch up so that it sees gets the right word on the page. And by the time the brain finds it, if it ever does, now the child has pretty much already forgotten what he read. And when he starts to read again, there's space. His reading is choppy. And he's not going to have good comprehension either. So, if that isn't bad enough, if that's not bad enough, when he starts to spell, he's going to have to approach spelling the same way as he's approaching this memorizing of these words. He has to memorize what the words look like rather than being able to spell by just sounding out the word. So, when I ask a sight reader to spell for me, they oftentimes do this. I'll say, "Can you spell the word cake?" And they'll say something like, "Oh, yeah, C-A, well, I know there's an E in there, but I can't remember what that other letter was." That's because they don't remember what the word looks like. Or I'll ask them to spell a word like dolphin, for example, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, D-O-L. Oh, I know I remember there's a P and an H in there somewhere, and an N, but I just don't remember what order or what the other letters are." And this has become because they've had to they're trying to remember what the word looked like rather than sound it out phonetically. So let me recap this. Kids that read by phonics read fluently, they remember what they've read, they're great spellers, and they love to read. Sight readers are choppy readers. They have poor comprehension, and many of them hate reading because it's so hard for them because they just have to guess at words. Of the thousands and thousands and thousands of children that I've taught how to read, not one has ever come down with any kind of reading disorder that we hear about today. My program that I've mentioned to you, called Pure Phonics, has worked for my children, my grandchildren, and thousands of them all over the world. And I start out, as I mentioned a while ago, that I only teach 3 sounds at a time. And that's it, just 3 sounds. And I start with H, M, and P. I don't teach them the names of the letters. I only teach them the sounds. And I teach them the pure sounds. I don't teach them the sounds because that's too much. We have to do one thing at a time and master it. It doesn't take all day. It doesn't need to take all day. That's it. Just lesson 1, and you stick with it until it's mastered. Now, I just said pure sound, pure phonics sound. What is a pure phonics sound? Well, I'm going to tell you by giving you another example. Just a few days ago, a family of homeschoolers came in and to be evaluated by me. And I asked the boys, there were 3 boys, 11, 10, and 8. And I said, "Do you guys like to read?" And they said, "No, we can't stand to read." And I looked at their mom and she said, "Well, I bought this reading program and I thought it would be good, but I don't know. But something's wrong. Something's really, really wrong and I need help." So I asked the boys, "What does the letter," I didn't say H, but I wrote it on a piece of paper. I said, "What does this letter, what sound does it make?" And in unison, they all 3 said, "Ha." I said, "Okay, well, what does this letter," and I wrote the letter M down. I said, "What does this letter say?" And they they said, ma. I said, okay. Well, I wrote the letter P down, and they said, pa. And I said, okay. Well, you know what? Let's go on and let's go to lesson 2, and let me ask you this. And lesson 2 is S, W, and T. And I said, so what do these letters say? And they said, sa, wa, and ta. And I said, okay. Well, let's go to lesson 3. What does the letter R say? And they said, ra. I said, good, we got that one. And what does the letter A say? What's its short sound? And they said, a. So, okay, that's good. Now, I wrote the word map on the board, and I said, now, can you read this word? And they looked at it, and they went, ma-appa, 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 ma-appa. And I said, well, boys, you know, you can say ma-appa all day long, and you're not going to get map. So let's go back, and let's talk about the pure sounds of these letters. It doesn't have a at the end of it, at the end of consonants. It's just a, and p. The pure sounds, not ha, ma, ta, ma, and all of those sounds. And so after we worked on them for the and the p for a few minutes, we went back and they looked at it and said, okay, app. There you go. What does it say? And they said, map. See, if you have the right sounds, just the pure sounds, you can hear it, right? And they said, yes. So sounding out is very important, but knowing the pure sounds is extremely important. Sounding out words not only teaches the child the correct sounds, but it also teaches the child how to learn. He learns that if he just takes little bite-sized pieces, just little lessons, he is going to learn the best. Let's think about a plate of food. If you have a plate of food, and maybe you have rice, or some other, or a vegetable, and you've got a little fruit, you've got a little meat on your plate. When you eat, you normally just eat a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. Maybe you snitch a little dessert from the side while you're doing it. But before long, after you've eaten a little of this, a little of this, a little of this, you've eaten a lot of food, and it adds up to a big meal. And the same goes with reading and math as well. Just learn a few sounds at a time, just learn a few math facts at a time, and all of a sudden you've learned a lot. So we teach just little bits at a time. Learning to put these sounds together also teaches a child that he has a job to do. He's got to do his job, and he's got to do it well before earning the right to move on. This teaches a child a work ethic and a self-discipline. He's learning that to read is by mastering each lesson. That means he doesn't get to go on until he knows those sounds perfectly. For example, if a student gets to lesson 3 and he can't read the words in lesson 3, we don't go on to lesson 4. We go back to lesson 1, and we go back and we review and we review and we review, because again, reviewing is key to mastery. Learning is not a race, it's mastery. And if you go too fast, your child is going to get frustrated and is not going to like to read. It is so tempting, I know. It is so tempting to go too fast, but don't do it. Teach your child to stick with it until each lesson is mastered. When you get first things first, you end up having accomplished a lot. I hear moms say, and I hear this quite frequently, I don't want my children to hate learning, so I'm not going to push them. I don't want my child to learn I don't want him to get bored and not like learning. Well, this is backwards thinking. Here's the real truth. If you don't teach your child how to learn, which includes mastery of every lesson that you do, if you don't teach him to work hard and be disciplined and stick to it until the job is done and done well, you're not teaching him. You're just going through the motions. Your child will turn out with no work ethic, no ability to stick to a project of any kind or any job until it's done and done well. In fact, he's going to tell you what to do by pulling the, oh, I'm bored or I'm tired. Instead, you must train them to stick with it and recognize that there are things in life that are difficult. They're hard at first, but if you stick with it and you work hard at it, you get it. If you try to do too much at one time, you will overload your child and you will have these troubles. However, if you stick with my bite-sized pieces like the meal, this rarely happens. Instead, your children will love learning and they can't wait to learn more. I promised you that I was going to teach you some pure phonics lessons, and even after that, we'll have time for a little Q&A, so hold your questions until then. But I would like to talk about just one more thing before we, or maybe two, before we get to it. Pure Phonics is an online course, and I know that there's a lot of people who say, I don't want my child to learn online, and I understand. But this is different. Each lesson begins with me teaching the lesson. It's like I'm right there in the room with you, in the living room or at your kitchen table or wherever you are. I grew up in South Texas, in case I'm trying to hide my Texas accent. I don't know how good I'm doing at it, but anyway, I did. I grew up in a small area of South Texas. In fact, our house was right on the Nueces River. So I had a lot of experiences growing up on a river. I heard myself say growing up on that river. And so I use my experiences, personal experiences, to teach children when I'm teaching them how to read. I tell them little stories about some of the things that happened, and the children love that because the way I do it, I teach them so that they remember what words mean. I help them remember what sounds mean. And parents tell me all the time, oh, sometimes we talk about it around the dinner table at night, or the kids remember the stories, and it does help them. I have them sound out the practice words and the sentences that are on each page of PDFs that come with the lesson. We talk about vocabulary. It is so important for children to build a huge vocabulary. And you do that as you're teaching them how to read. If they don't know what the word means that they've read, there's no purpose in going on. So we work on building vocabulary. This particular program is accessible so that the children can take it wherever they want to, in the car, or and practice on their sounds while traveling or waiting in a doctor's office or anything like that. But also, I wanted to tell you about the struggling reader. A struggling reader is one generally who's gone too fast and got left behind. And this is absolutely the method that we've been talking about is perfect for the struggling reader. They need to stop and go back and get caught back up, get the basics back down. For example, you moms, you probably look in the utility room or laundry room and you see a pile of clothes on the floor and you go, oh man, I don't have time to stop and wash and iron and fold and put all those clothes away right now. And so you leave it alone and you go on and do something else. And one of your children, another child comes in and dumps some dirty clothes, and now the pile's a little bit higher, and then your husband comes home from work and he says, by the way, the boss and his wife are coming over for dinner tomorrow night, and you think, oh my goodness, how am I going to get caught up? My house is a mess, I'm still trying to teach the kids, and I've got all this laundry and I've got dishes in the sink, what am I going to do? Well, you just feel like you want to say, stop the world for a few minutes and let me get caught up, and then I can go forward again. That's what the struggling reader feels like. The struggling reader feels like, I don't get it. I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting very demoralized. I need the world to just stop and somebody help me. And that's exactly what you have to do. You've got to go back and go back over these simple lessons and a little bit at a time and help that struggling reader to master these things and then go forward, refreshed and feeling like I can do it. Now I understand. I had a little boy come in one day, and his parents had taken him here, there, and everywhere trying to get him to read. He couldn't read, and he went up, I showed him just a few things, like hat, how to sound out hat, and mat, and just a few simple words, and he turned around and he looked at me and he went, that's how it's done? And I said, yeah, that's how it's done. And he said, oh, and just went right to town, started reading like crazy. That's all he needed. And that's the same thing. The struggling reader just needs your help. They need to go back and go back to the beginning and get, the basics down and get excited. Now we have come to my favorite part, and that is teaching the lessons. We have lesson 1 up here on the screen for you. If we go to the next slide, you'll see H, M, and P. I have the capital letters up there, the uppercase letters, but I don't even mention those to the children. I don't even mention those for a long time. We get to them eventually. As a matter of fact, they just eventually catch on the way we do our program. But we start with H, and we teach them the first lesson. In fact, I see a few little children in here. Would you like to help out there in the audience? Or all of you all can do it with me. At the first lesson, I always say, let's learn the sound of, I don't say the name, I just said, let's learn the sound of this letter, and I'll write it down for them, or show them on the page. And I'll tell them, this is the sound, the letter that says, and we go, kill the microphone. I tell them to put their hand in front of their mouth, and I tell them, if you can feel the sound if you can feel the air hitting the palm of your hand, you're saying the letter right. Did you do it? Did you feel the air on your hand? I see you two back there doing this with me. Can you feel it? Yay! You did it correctly then. Good job. Now, if you think they're going to remember that in a little while, they probably won't. You have to go back and do what? Review, right? The second sound is the sound of and I tell the children, I rub my tummy and say, it tastes so good. It tastes good. And then we go back to, I said, okay, let's do these two. And we practice. And I'll mix them up, point back, I'll tell them I'm going to try to mix them up. Don't let me make you miss. And we do both of those for a while. And then we do, and we add, it's a hard one. I just tell them it's a very soft sound. And we practice, and that's our first lesson. And it doesn't seem like much, but it's a lot. It's a whole lot of learning for little children, because children have little attention spans, as you well know. I'll put the letters on flashcards, and I'll do things with them, like put them on the table and mix them all up and say, now, show me which one says, or show me which one says, which one is left? And I'll put them on the floor, and we play games like, I'll say, go pick up the one that says, or go pick up the one that says, and we play games with them and things like that. And then you can, if you write the letters on flashcards, put them in your pocket or put them in your purse, take them with you everywhere you go, and all day long, pull them out wherever you are and just say, hey, what's this one? Let's keep reviewing. And they learn so quickly. And then you can go to lesson 2. And lesson 2 has s, what, and t. 3 more sounds. And we do the same thing. We talk about s, it's the snake sound. And I'll make them do a little snake with their hand. And then what? And we talk about what? Like wild wolf. And I ask them, have you ever seen a wild wolf before? And we might even stop and look up what a wild wolf looks like. But we just keep practicing over and again. And then, is the one that what the clock says. Just the clock ticking. So if you have a clock at home that still has hands on it that move, it's not a digital clock, then let your child listen to it. It's just the sound. Then we take, after we've mastered these 3, we go back and we take all of the Pure Phonics Lesson 1 sounds and all of these, the Lesson 2 and the Lesson, we haven't gotten to there yet. And we just take the Lesson 1 and 2 sounds, we mix them up and we practice those. And if they miss even one of them, we stop. We don't go on to Lesson 3. We just practice with those 6 sounds until you can't miss it. That's what's known as mastery. And that is what is helping your child learn how to learn. And then finally, when all of those are perfect, we go on to Lesson 3 and learn R. Now I have so many kids who come in and they say, oh, I know that one, that's Well, it's not it's R. And I've had teachers debate this with me, but I said, do we hear rabbit? No. We hear rabbit, don't we? Do we hear ring? No, we hear ring, right? And when we get to blends such as bruh and cruh and fruh and frog, do we hear fur and cur and fur? Do you hear furrog? No, it's a sound with it. So there are some occasions where you'll hear sound, but very few and far between. So we teach the letter R. It says R. And with those 8 letter sounds, now you can read all of those words. And so Lesson 3 is super exciting day. Super exciting day. Today we're going to learn how to read. And we take just one word at a time. And I point to each letter. And you might see something funny happen. Let's take hat, for example. As you point to the letter H, your child might go, or go, well, that's fine. Keep going. He'll go, and or do the symbols. And that's great. It's because he's remembering it. Eventually he'll quit it. Instead, especially as you go faster, you'll say, you point to it, act. And over and again until they can hear it. And when they hear it, say, hat, it is celebration time. I mean, celebrate. Be so cheerful. Congratulate him. He got it, and he's going to be so excited, and you will too. I still get goosebumps the first time that they read after all these years. And then you go to the next word, Matt, and you do the same thing. And if he rubs his tummy and says, perfect, act, Matt, you put it together. And again, if he hears Matt, that's great. If he can't get it 2 or 3 times, that's okay. You just keep working at it until he does. Or if he can't do it by just you pointing to the letters on the page, then pop those flashcards back out. And in fact, that's a fun thing to do anyway. Put the MAP flashcards on the table and just use those for him to see if they're a little bit bigger than what's on the page. And then once they can read all these words, and you may not want to try to do them all in one day. You want to, that's telling me I better hurry up. And I have so much more to tell you. And once they've learned all of those words, and maybe, as I said, don't try to do it all in one day, then take the cards and mix them up and try to see if they can spell the word. Say, you read the word that so well. I'm going to mix the letters up. What sound do you hear first? And they'll say, I hear Good, let's put the right here. And then what do you hear? You help it. Add. Oh, I hear add. Good, so you put the add, and then you put the t on. So they're learning how to spell on top of everything else. They're learning how to read by learning the sounds. They can sound out words they haven't seen before. They've got good comprehension. Everything works with phonics. And then, quickly, I will tell you that after we learn these 3 sounds, the 8 sounds, then we go on through the alphabet and keep learning more and more of it, and learn all the short vowel sounds. And then we go on to lesson 15, 16, and 17. And those are the sounds of Y. The letter Y says yeah at the beginning of a word, except for in lawyer. That one doesn't work right. But all the rest of words, the letter Y, I teach that the letter Y begins, says yeah when it's the first letter of a word. And so we practice sounding out. Yeah, S, yes, and yeah, et, and yolk. And if they don't know what the word yolk means, or they don't know what a yam is, or what a yak is, stop and show them. Get your phones out and look at pictures. And show them what the words mean and what they look like, the animals that they represent, and so forth. And then we go to lesson 16. But before we go to lesson 16, I always suggest that you go back several lessons, maybe go back to, say, lesson 12, and review, and then go forward, so that you're always reviewing. Lesson 16 shows the letter Y at the end of a big word. And so we look at words like candy or bunny. What do you hear at the end? You hear a E. So Y at the end of a big word says E. And then after we've memorized that, we learn what does the letter Y say at the end of a little word. We'll take the word my or by. What do you hear? You hear I, right? So we say, it says I. So we practice. Y at the beginning of a word says yeah. And I always draw a line and put the letter in its proper position. And then Y at the end of a big word says E. And Y at the end of a little word says, and they always point to their I. They'll say I. And as soon as we've gone through those letters, those sounds, lessons, we go on to, I've put lesson 18 up here. Lesson 8. Can we get to lesson 18? Lesson 18 starts what are called digraphs. That's just a fancy name for 2 consonants together that make a new sound. C says k, and H says, when you put them together, they say, so, very good, very good. I'll hire you to teach. And so you put those 2 together, and now they take off like gangbusters. Now, once you get to CH, SH, QU, TH, WH, PH, all of those, they really take off, because this is a lot more fun. But they've done the hard work. They've learned all the sounds. They've learned how to sound out and put all these sounds together. And if you've watched all the videos as you go through, and you've watched me teach, your child is going to have learned how to learn. Your child's going to learn to be an amazingly great reader. He's going to have a great vocabulary. And on the videos also, as I have a portion where I teach them how to hold their pencil correctly and how to make their letters from the top down, not from the bottom up. And we have fun doing all of these things, and you will have had fun doing all these things. And you'll have heard some great stories that will help you to remember the sounds and the meanings of some words. So we have just, I don't know how many minutes now, but not much, for a couple of questions that you might have. And when we get through, I hope that you'll come by our booth, which is booth 56, and come learn more about Pure Phonics. And I would love to have you bring your children by too, and let me just assess them, see how they're doing with their reading. And my daughter, Kelly Smuts, teaches our math, and she's the author of Pure Math. And she would love to assess them in their math as well. And I'd love to show you the rest of our pure curriculum, which is we have pure addition and pure subtraction, so we have pure math, and pure paragraphs, which is absolutely a blast, and pure spelling for beginners, so we have a pure spelling for advanced course, and so forth. And we have a bag for each one of you all to take home with you when you leave. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Are you going to republish your book? I just looked it up on Amazon. I was going to order it, or it says it's unavailable.
It's not available anymore. It's all there. I will tell you that the first 5 people who purchase the online course today or tomorrow get the last 5 copies of the book. I have five left, and that's it. The book used to be the book with a CD or DVD, and all of a sudden those went bye-bye, and nobody wanted CDs or DVDs anymore, and so we went to digital. But it's great. Now it's portable. You can take it anywhere. And this summer, we're going to have an app. So you'll be able to get it on the app and be able to just go right to it. Yes, ma'am?
What's the cost of your online course?
The online...
Or what you were just referring to?
Okay, it's $199. You buy it, and it's yours forever. You can use it. You don't have to buy it for one time, and you've got it for every child who comes along. And each lesson has the PDFs with it, which for the book. So you get the book. You're actually getting the book, which was $90 for. It's a great buy.
And where does one get this? Down your.
You get it on Campbell Academy Online.com. And we have a spinning wheel at our booth as well. And if you spin, you can get 20% off, or there's some 10% offs on the Pure Phonics book as well. So come by and have a spin. We also are having a raffle, and we're going to draw at 6 o'clock. And we're giving away one of the Pure Diagramming books. And that, I don't know how many of y'all ever learned to diagram in English, but it is fun, and it's the way to oh, I got somebody who did. You did?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And it's the fun way to learn grammar. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What age do you start to
teach
think of
them?
some? Yeah, like what age do you start to teach reading, and what age do you start to recognize someone as struggling?
I start them at 3 years old. Most 3-year-olds can do it. Now, there are some 3-year-olds that are still not ready. They're just babies, but most 3-year-olds are ready to learn to read. And our 3-year-olds learn to read. It usually takes them maybe a year and a half to get through the Pure Phonics 1 book. But our 4-year-olds, by the time they turn 4 and 4 and a half, something like that, they're usually reading. I mean, they're going to read in the 3rd lesson. But to get completely finished with it, it's usually a year around there. But they can surprise you. They can learn faster than that. This is good for if you start them at 4, it's great. If you start at 5, it's great. Whatever time you need to start, but as early as possible.
And if you're taking a struggling reader back, just start them whenever. Just
go back to the beginning. Go back to the beginning. I know it's hard. It's not as hard on you as it is on them, because they've had a little experience and they think they know it all already, and you have to say, this is for your good. This is for your good. You need to go back and let's learn this and just get it down perfectly. And then you're going to be a fantastic reader, and you're going to love to read, and you'll be able to read anything you want to read and fire them up. But absolutely, go back to the very, very beginning. Yes?
Other end of that, my child started teaching herself to read it with fun.
Okay.
And she is using not your program, but
Okay.
appropriate sound. She's not doing the extra A's and U's at the end of letters. So she knows most of them. I learned a lot, I think, from you just now, so that's good.
Okay.
So we have some struggles there. She's only starting to read the words by herself, but she's used to learning on her own and then picking up little books. Do you recommend something to go board of a gifted child as you get bored. Have you found that you have issues with that previously, or does your program accommodate that?
Even for a child who's done what your child has done, and by the way, that's great, it's a wonderful thing that she can do that, I'm happy for her, but I think she will still love this. I would go, if she already knows whichever sound she already knows, you don't have to burden her to stick with that, but go to the ones that she doesn't know, because it won't be long before she finds you get to some that she doesn't know, for sure. And she's not gonna be bored with this. She's gonna be tickled pink with it. She's gonna be doing the tracing sheets with it. And there are little books out there online that you can get that are just short vowel readers. No long vowels. You don't mix long and short vowels. I'm so glad you said that. Don't mix short vowel and long vowel readers. You stick with the short vowel. In pure phonics, you will not find any long vowel words until the very last lesson when I teach them that particular lesson. And that, once they reach the last lesson and they learn the two vowel rule, it opens up a whole new world for them. But until then, there are no long vowel. So if you can get some phonics readers that are, people like the Bob books, but stick with the Bob books that are just the short vowel readers. Yeah, don't go into the ones, they tend to mix. So, but there are some that are just strictly short vowel. You can go to the library and ask and see if you can find some I hope that answers your question. Good. Yes?
My daughter's been doing speech therapy since she was 2 because when she was a baby she had dysphagia and a couple other things. So she has weak mouth muscles. Would this be okay for her? Because she doesn't understand, like when you say "oh," you're supposed to do an "oh," like her mouth doesn't understand that. So would this be okay?
Absolutely. One of the biggest hospitals in Dallas is called Scottish Rite Hospital, and it takes a good 6 months to 8 months, sometimes longer, to get your child in when you've got a child who's got a problem. And you know what their prescription is? Phonics. And if you talk to speech therapists, they'll tell you, find somebody who's got a good phonics program. Because you have to, as you're learning the sounds, they're having to learn tongue placement and mouth shape and all of those things. And yes, absolutely.
And I was a kid that phonics did not work for me, and as 30-something, phonics still does not work for me. So I don't know how I'm going to teach it. But, and my next question is, when do you teach long vowels? Because I don't know.
The first one says its name, and the second one stays quiet. That's it. And not the first one goes walking, and the second one, or whatever. The first one does. See, it's too confusing. Now, I better not tell the story. A child, I'm just going to give it to you in a different version. A child said that his teacher at time that one of them reaches over to the other one and pops it on the head. And oh my goodness, we don't want to teach that. But no, first one says its name, second one stays quiet, and you got it. Now, there's another rule down the road that's in Pure Phonics 2, which is a much higher level of phonics rules, but it's our 5-year-olds at Campbell Christian Academy in Dallas. They're all in book 2. They were in book 2 by the end of the year, so they're phenomenal readers. So it doesn't take long, and I was thinking about you saying phonics didn't work for you. Get ready to learn. You're going to have fun with this, and you're going to learn it.
I'm
I
pawning
promise.
it off on my husband. He was homeschooled.
I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. And I hope that if you do get it, that you will stay in touch with me and let me know.
Yes, ma'am.
I hope so. Okay?
I think you already answered, but can the child start even though they don't know any letters?
Absolutely. That's the best time to start them because they haven't picked up any bad habits, they're clean slates, and you start from the beginning and whammo. That's it. Hope that answers your question. Anybody else? Yes.
So with your curriculum, they watch a video and then like the mom, the teacher has like sheets that they work on them with?
That's right. I'll be teaching the lesson, and I suggest playing the lesson, the video lesson, several times. Maybe not one right after the other. They may want to because it's fun. But go ahead and do it maybe once or twice, and then there are 2 pages that you will download for each one, print off. And the first one is the page that you just saw on here. So that's exactly what you're going to see. If you saw that and you didn't have me teaching it, you'd say, well, what do I do with 3 letters here? You wouldn't know what to do. But with me teaching it, you're going to know exactly what to do, and you'll be able to, you're going to be the most important part. You're going to reinforce by going back over and talking and playing and doing all the, not play, but playing with the flashcards and doing little things to help him solidify or her the sounds, and helping them put it together and being patient and loving and kind and teaching them that stick-to-itness that we were talking about, sticking with it and not getting frustrated and just have fun with it until he does get it. It's just, every child is different. And yes, you will go through those, and then they'll have a tracing page for, like, for example, the first one has H, M, and P, it's tracing. And you'll see it, and you will see the little pen on there. You'll see me making the letter from the top down, and every time the child makes the letter, say the sound. Have him say the sound. For example, if he makes the H, as he pulls his pencil down and over, I always say, down, up, and over the mountain. And so I tell them to say, down, up, and over the mountain. Down, up, and over the mountain. And by the way, if you have little ones, or even bigger ones who have a hard time holding their pencil because they're little, don't be surprised. Get a pencil grip and put it on. Put pencil grips on their crayons that they color with. Put pencil grips on everything to teach them where the thumb placement is and where all of that goes. And get behind the child. If your child is sitting in a chair, you stand. Move that, but it would make a lot of noise. There's a chair back here. But you stand behind the child and bend over and put your hand, your left, if he's right-handed, put your left hand on top of his left hand and tell him, hold the paper, put your hand right here like a rock to hold the paper still. And then you hold the pencil, your hand over him and help make sure he's holding it correctly with the pencil grip, and help him and say, down, up, and over the mountain. Down, up, and over the mountain. And say the sound each time. And if it's M, for example, it's down, up, and over the mountain, up, and over the mountain. And so I have little tricks for helping them make the letters as well. It's all on here. The reading, the learning the vocabulary, and the writing. And yes?
Do you have maybe on YouTube a sample lesson or a singular lesson?
There are sample lessons.
See how they connect with you?
Yes. Yes. What did you say? Oh, yes. The question was, can you see a sample lesson? Yes, and on the pages that you're going to get in your bags, there's a QR code, and it'll take you to the site, and you'll be able to see sample lessons. Also, we have a Facebook page, CampbellAcademyOnline.com, and we have a YouTube channel that we just started. It doesn't have a whole lot on it yet, but you can go and look at children, and you can see videos or see pictures of other children working with the program and see what they're doing. And I love it when people send me videos of their children. I know a lot of people don't want their faces on YouTube or and that's fine. Turn their backs, but if you can send me videos that show how they're doing, we love to get those because it really helps other people, other parents, to make decisions on, is this program something that my child would like? But I guarantee you it is. We're again, booth 56. We're going to do the drawing. It looks, I'm still on Dallas time, but it looks like we've got about 15 minutes before we do the drawing. So come on by, get in it. And if you would like the Pure Phonics, you can spin and get 20%, 10% off. So thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed
Oh, yes,
I
it was
hope-
great.
I